Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Next Gen podcast. This is your host, Aliyah Salas, and I'm here with my co-host, Adrian Robledo, and we have a special guest today, Pastor Richard. He is the assistant pastor for the Door Christian Fellowship in El Paso. Welcome, Pastor Richard.
Hi.
So today, we're just going to be asking you some questions, and can you give us your testimony, please?
Yes, absolutely. I actually come from a small town called Del City, Texas. And the reason I mention that is because it was a very, very small town, and that kind of gives you a little bit of a backdrop of where I come from, because one of the issues that I had to deal with when I was growing up was I was very shy and introverted. And you know, in a small town, there was not a lot to do. So I did what all my friends were doing. So my friends were into drinking, so I started drinking. My friends were into smoking pot, so I started smoking pot, because that's just what you did in a small town. You kind of followed the flow.
Yeah.
And so, I started getting into these things more uh, out of just trying to fit in, more than me actually liking them. I
Yeah.
remember the very first time I tried alcohol and drank my first beer, I almost wanted to spit it out. I didn't think it tasted good at all. I was
Yeah.
13 years
Right.
old the first time I got drunk, and you know, I didn't see the point of it, but I held it in and I kept drinking. But it was all just to just please my friends and just be as fitting in to the group as I could.
Yeah.
So what happened is I started drinking, and I remember telling myself when I started drinking, okay, I'll do this, but I won't go beyond this, right? It's like if I cross the line, but I won't cross the next line, which in my mind the next line was smoking dope,
Yeah.
was smoking pot. And so I I thought to myself, okay, I'm not gonna get crazy. But I remember when they offered me my very first joint and my very first, marijuana joint, and I remember smoking it, and I remember thinking to myself, okay, I'm gonna do this, but I'll never go beyond that. So that was the second line I crossed. And so around that time, my dad lost his job in Del City, so he moved to El Paso, Texas, and so I still wanted to stay there because I wanted to be with my friends. But uh, after a while, I stayed with one of my sisters, but my sister couldn't stand me anymore because I was getting too out of control.
Yeah.
So at some point, they sent me to El Paso, and to me, coming to El Paso was coming to a major, major city, and so
Mm-hmm.
our high school, my graduating class in Del City would have been about 30 people, and coming to a high school that was graduating class was about 1,000 people. That was like crazy. It was a huge, huge, big step upward into something that I felt was way beyond me. So when I started going to Riverside High School here in El Paso, same thing. I started trying to fit into whatever I could find. The first friends I could find, I started latching on to those first friends, and it turned out that the first friends I latched onto were into smoking pot and weed and drugs, and
Yeah.
and so I had already crossed those first two lines, the drinking, then the smoking joints. But I remember at some point they started offering pills.
Wow.
So it wasn't like the crazy pills, it was just like uppers and downers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember taking some other pill. I don't remember what it was, but I remember crossing that third line. And I at that point I'm like, man, I'm starting to cross more lines than I thought I would ever cross. So this was all at 15 years old, or before turning 15. So I've already crossed three of the lines that I said I would never cross. So at that
Right.
point I'm drinking. I remember at some point at 15 years old, I was pretty much getting drunk every other day. I was smoking dope probably 3 times a week. And I remember I started taking those pills probably a couple of times, maybe once a week. But I remember thinking to myself, okay, I'll get to that point, but I won't go beyond that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I remember there was a friend who, quote unquote, was a friend. He later I found out, he was just trying to get me hooked.
Right.
But I remember he told me, I remember the day he told me specifically, hey, I have a friend that's willing to give you cocaine. And he said, if you meet me at so and so place, he's going to give it to you. And he started telling me, this stuff is kind of expensive. So the fact that he's going to give it to you is like that. He was painting it to me like if this is a real friend because he's going to give it
Yeah.
to you free, but
Right.
and so I remember thinking to myself at that point, I felt depressed. I think my highest grade at that point was like a 30 or a 40.
Oh,
I think the only class I was passing was PE, physical education,
yeah.
and I had pretty much just given up. I felt depressed. I remember thinking thoughts of suicide at that point, and I
Wow.
remember specifically thinking thoughts of taking a gun, shooting myself, and leaving a note, and blaming all the people that I felt were the reason why I was going to take my life. And one of them was a teacher that had humiliated me. Another one was this other person that I hated. And and I remember I thinking to myself, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to take my life. And thank God there was something within me that just knew that was wrong. At some point, I think when I was around 12 years old, my mom had taken me to a Pentecostal church, and I had actually gotten saved. I prayed, and so I remember feeling something at that time. I remember hearing about heaven and hell. So I had enough of a consciousness of hell
Mhm.
that that's the thing that held me back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I'm not going to kill myself because what if I do kill myself? And what if heaven and hell are real? And what if I go to hell?
Right.
And so that's the thing that was holding me back. But I was depressed. I felt lonely. Even though I had certain amount of friends, I felt like if I didn't belong. And when this friend offered me that cocaine, I remember thinking about it for a little bit, and I remember making a decision within myself. I made a decision and said, you know, what's it all worth anyways? I don't think life is worth it anyways. So I made a decision, and I knew to me that was going to be like the final line I was going to cross. And I thought to myself, I'm going to finally cross that line. I'm going to take cocaine, and whatever comes after that, I don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And it was like this subtle, private decision in my life that I was making by going to take that cocaine. I I was making a decision. I'm throwing my life away. Whatever comes after that, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm just going to throw it away. It doesn't matter anymore. I don't care what becomes of my life anymore. I think the devil just had my mindset in such a place that I just didn't care.
Hmm.
And and I was supposed to meet that friend on a Friday to take the cocaine.
Yeah.
And it was right before that someone told me about Jesus.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
So after that came salvation.
Wow. So, can you tell us like how you got like witnessed, or did you like start actually going to a church that he witnessed to you about, or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what happened is since I was doing so bad in school, there was one particular class I was doing really bad at, and so that was English. And so the teacher there, he, looking back, I'm assuming he was just trying to do good, but I remember he specifically telling me, I can't help you. You need someone that'll actually help you to to get better grades.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he was just trying to get rid of me or what he was doing, but he
Yeah.
said, you know what, I'm going to change classes and I'm going to put you in another class. And this other teacher, she's really good with helping people that are having a hard time learning. So I didn't know how to interpret that. I don't know if that was him trying to get rid of me or he was actually trying to help me. I don't
Yeah.
know,
Right.
but he changed classes. He changed me to another class of another teacher. I forgot her name. But when I walked into her class, I remember specifically it was a half empty class.
Wow.
So in my mind, I thought, well, I guess this is where all the losers go. So or the ones
Yeah.
that just aren't making it, and
Yeah.
so it was just a few people. Usually the classrooms had about 30 kids. This one had about 15 kids. And so I walk in, I give her the slip that this other teacher had given me. I give her the slip, and she tells me, sit wherever you want. So I looked around. I saw an empty chair behind one of the guys. I went to go sit down. The class started. She went through her class. And as soon as the class finished, the guy that was in front of me turned around, gave me a flyer, and told me, hey, has anyone ever told you about Jesus? And he started witnessing to me.
Yeah.
And that witness, I remember me feeling within myself, I was feeling two things. On one side, I could feel people looking at me and looking at this interaction between me and this guy, him witnessing to me.
Right.
And part of me was saying, shut up, leave me alone.
Yeah.
You're embarrassing me.
Yeah.
But another side of me was saying, keep talking. This is exactly what I need.
Yeah.
I need God. I need God to somehow show himself to me. And so part of me was saying, please keep going. Please keep going. Another side was saying, please stop. Please stop.
Yeah.
But thank God he kept going.
Yeah. Praise God.
And so that was a Friday night. That Saturday, I went back to my hometown and I got drunk.
Yeah.
But I remember thinking to myself, as I'm drinking the beer, I remember even thinking this even tastes different.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's like if the beer didn't taste the same. It tasted horrible.
Wait, you gave your life to Christ on that Friday, or
No,
he had invited you, but you still hadn't gone?
Exactly. He had just invited me, and so I just had that witness in my mind.
Right.
And so that's on a Friday night. Saturday I go party, and I'm drinking with my friends, and I'm thinking this is I just had those words in my mind.
Yeah.
And I remember specifically telling my friends, man, what's this worth? I mean, this is stupid. I remember them telling me, what's wrong with you, man? You're being a downer, man, and you're ruining our party without
Right.
just being so negative. But what it was that those words of this guy that witnessed to me
Right.
were just they were so powerfully influencing my mind that I couldn't enjoy partying.
Yeah.
So that was a Saturday. I got drunk with them. I got high. Sunday, same thing, but I felt miserable the whole time.
Yeah.
So come Monday, I come back to El Paso. I go to school, and as soon as I had that class, I tapped him on the shoulder, and I said, "Hey, you know how you invited me to that church?" He goes, "Yeah." He said, I told him, "Do you think I could go?" And he was, "Yeah, absolutely." I said, "Okay, when's the next time I can go?" He said, "We're actually having a concert on a Wednesday." So what had happened is there was a band called Wisdom. It was a pretty popular band that was going around the fellowship at the time, and so they would play at different churches, and the church would give them a love offering, and they'd move on to the next one. It was kind of a traveling ministry.
Yeah.
And so it just so happened that they were going to play at this church
Here in El
on a
Paso.
Wednesday. Yeah.
Wow.
Nice.
And so he invites me to this concert on a Wednesday, and he says, "Hey man, we're having a rock concert. Do you like rock and roll?" I was like, "Absolutely."
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was an 80s heavy metal rocker, man. So
Yeah.
so so I said absolutely. So I went to that concert on a Wednesday, played, that we had the concert, we had the music, and when the guy that got up to preach, which was actually was Frank Luna, Pastor Frank Luna, he gets up and starts preaching, and I remember thinking to myself, man, this is exactly what I need.
Yeah.
And so when he started asking for people to raise their hand, I remember the friend that invited me, his name was Peter Velez. He starts trying to get me to raise my hand, but I don't think he realized I was already wanting to raise my hand.
Yeah.
So he's trying to convince me, but at the same time, I'm hearing Pastor Frank Luna pull and raise your hand if you want to ask your, and I'm almost wanting him to shut up so I can raise my hand.
Right.
Yeah.
But I remember I finally just my hand just shot up, and so my friend like tripped out that I had responded, and so he took me to the altar, prayed with me, and I gave my life to Jesus, man. And that's at that point my life completely changed. My life turned around 100%.
Wow.
Well, that's awesome, Pastor. I'm glad that you're sharing that with us, and I'm sure that this is gonna help, a lot of youth out there, that might have struggled with the same things you did, that are looking for an answer. So, Pastor, you get saved, you give your life to Christ, and I'm sure you start attending regular services. Were there any struggles that you had to overcome? I know some people, they get saved and it's an instant transformation from everything, that they were struggling with, if it was like the drinking or smoking. Was there anything for you that you still had to overcome, or some bondages that you had a struggle breaking after getting saved?
Yeah, absolutely. I think most people have some kind of an area, right? And so,
Right.
with me, I struggled. There's things that changed right away. Like one of the things that almost instantly changed was my language.
Yeah.
So I used to cuss every other word.
Oh, wow.
Right.
I had a filthy, dirty, rotten mouth.
Yeah.
Everything I came out of my mouth. I remember one time, we this brother that invited me to church. I remember he was following up on me, and so we went. He took me to follow. He just took me bike riding because that was kind of a way that we just hang out. And I remember we started talking about the music and the concert scenes and how we can change words that are worldly songs and change them into Christian songs.
Yeah.
Right.
And I remember thinking, yeah, there's this song, a song by Queen called "We Will Rock You,"
Oh, yeah.
and I started telling him, yeah, I'm going to change that song, man. I started telling him, I'm going to change it to, instead of we will rock you, he will save you, or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then the words that I started changing was "devil, you're a liar," and then a bunch of bad words started coming. "You're a bleep bleep bleep."
Gosh.
But I remember as I said those words, I remember looking at my friend, and he's looking at me. He's like with a surprised look, and I couldn't believe I had said those words. And that's
Yeah.
where I realized, man, I can't even say those words without feeling bad. And I realized something had changed within me. So
Wow.
I think that's one of the last times I ever cussed. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure there was one or two other times after
Yeah.
that over the years that it might have slipped out or something. But
Mhm.
I mean, that part of me completely changed. Never to drink again, never to smoke again. Actually, a week after I got saved, I drank one last time, just out of this stupid, uh, uh, bad decision I made to go see my friends. And
Yeah.
but that was the last time I ever drank. I never smoked again. I never did those things. So those things changed. But the flesh
Yeah.
is the flesh.
Yeah.
I struggled with things like lust. I struggled with things that were a stronghold in me, because before I was saved, I'd gotten into pornography, I'd gotten into perversions and things like that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so those things continue to be a stronghold in my life until I started growing up, making decisions, uh, uh, asking God to help me, and those lasted a little bit longer before I could break those bondages.
Right.
But there's other things that I could say. I guess one of the bondages that I could say stuck with me for a long time
Mm-hmm.
was my insecurities. I was a very insecure person,
Yeah.
and I think that came from we've heard about the spirit of rejection, right?
Yeah.
And so I struggled with a rejection complex, insecurity complex. I was very shy. It was very hard for me to get past that. I took things very personal. It was hard for me to relate to people, to establish friendships, because of how strong this stronghold was in my life. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
when I started giving my life over and surrendering more to God, hearing sermons, making decisions, that started breaking. And obviously as a pastor, it's very hard for you to pastor with that if you're going to be insecure. So,
Yeah.
Definitely.
so God really helped me with that over the years. But those are things that I had to struggle longer term with.
Yeah. So, did you have a hard time making a stand for your faith at school? Or was it like just like, man, I'm just gonna keep going for Jesus, like, you know?
Yes, I at first it was hard because of the shyness and the
Yeah.
introvertness. You know, I was very introverted. But at some point, I think I it I just think it was the decisions that I personally made before God that to say it. I said I want to be a preacher. God, I think you've called me to be a preacher,
Yeah.
and if that's the case, I can't let shyness and timidness hold me back.
Yeah.
So I remember points where I started witnessing to everyone at school. I mean, I got to a point where people would see me walking up to them where I would always have a Bible in my hand and flyers in the other hand. And they
Yeah.
would see me walking up to them and there's like, here comes the holy roller, man. And so they
Yeah.
turn around and walk away. And so there came a point where I think we probably witnessed to every Christian in the school. I remember standing up on the cafeteria tables preaching to
Oh, wow.
Wow.
people,
Wow.
that, before that, it was very hard for me to do that. But once I did that the first time, it's like if I got a boldness, and after that, it was still hard,
Yeah.
but I just it's like a line that I crossed that I said, okay, I could do this,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
after I crossed that line, it
Now you
became
started
easier to do it.
crossing lines for Jesus
Yeah,
instead
exactly,
of, with the world.
Yeah.
exactly,
Exactly. Yeah.
exactly right.
Praise
Yeah.
God.
So, Pastor, what's actually crazy to me is, so you preached in Juarez, Mexico City, Spain, and Colombia, and they're all conference centers now. Can you explain the process from the moment you were gonna go start your first church to now?
Yeah. Well, I'll correct that a little bit. They're not
Yeah.
actually conference centers,
Oh,
but
okay.
they're church planning centers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, yeah. So, uh, when I first took over the first church in Juarez, I was 21 years old.
Wow.
So I guess you could say I was young and stupid.
Yeah.
No, but I had the naiveness of youth, and I just didn't care. All for Jesus, just jumped in 100%.
Yeah.
And I guess there was a side to that that helped me because looking back, I went through hardships that to me at that point weren't hardships. They were just
Yeah.
Yeah.
part of the adventure of serving God and part of the adventure of doing something for God, man. And so, when I was 21 years old, I took over the first church in Juarez. That church had about 15 people, and I think by the time we left it, about 2.5 years later, it was running about 50 to 60 people.
Nice.
Excuse me. From there, we pioneered the church in Mexico City. At that point, I was 24 years old, so
Oh,
I was
wow.
still in my youth,
Yeah.
and we pioneered that church, pastored it for close to 11 years. So I was there until I was about 34, 35. Then we came to assist the first time here in El Paso. So I assisted from 2005 to 2009, and then from there we went to take the church in Spain. We pastored that for 3 years. We were able to send out the first church out of that church.
Nice.
Um, and then we had a row of disciples that were ready to go. And then what happened is here in Juarez, the pastor in Juarez, which was Juan Sustersick,
Yeah.
he got sent out to another city, but there was no one to replace him. And I remember at the conference that he got announced, no replacement was announced. And
Oh,
I
wow.
remember talking to Pastor Stevens and said, what happened? He goes, well, I think he mentioned a couple of people. He didn't say who, but he mentioned a couple of people that he offered the church to, and just nobody wanted to take it. So I felt the witness in my spirit uh, to respond to that. And I talked to Pastor and I said, I'll take it, and we can actually nationalize the church, and this church in Spain can become pastored by national. And we came and took the Juarez church. and we pastored that for about 5 more years. And then after that, we felt an itch and a call to go beyond, and that's when we got the call to go to Colombia. And Colombia, we pioneered that church, so we started from the ground up.
Nice.
And so I guess from then to now, if I could say there's a difference, I think when you're young, you have the advantage of youth and energy, and there's a certain naiveness that you can take it all as a big adventure, and that's fine. When you're older, you take into account a little bit. It's a little bit different, but you have the advantage of being wiser.
Right.
So now there's a lot of things that I do now that I would have never done back then, or that I did back then that I would never do now, rather.
Yeah.
There's things that I didn't understand about ministry back then that I understand now, and just over the years, you become wiser. You see things that you didn't see back then, and so now I'm able to see more things from a different angle, from more mature angle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Thank you.
Pastor, what was the hardest leadership challenge you faced while pastoring internationally?
Well, I think each church that I pastored had its own challenges. I think the Juarez church, I think it was the first time it was my immaturity.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand things. I didn't understand dynamics of a church.
Yeah.
So I remember being very hard on people. I remember preaching very, very, just very direct, very hard sermons.
Yeah.
And by the grace of God, some people stuck around.
Yeah.
So I mean, that was kind of that. Mexico City, I think the culture of Mexico City was very different from the culture of northern Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
So just the way people thought, the way they act, everything was rush, rush, rush. Everything, people are running around everywhere, and so kind of getting into a pace that we were not used to.
Right.
Just everything rushing, rushing, rushing. I mean, that was hard to, from a laid back culture to a very, everything is go, 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 go. So getting used to cultures like that, and the largest of the city, I remember that took a little bit of time to kind of get used to. I mean, we were kind of crazy back then. So back then there was no such thing as a GPS on your phone.
Yeah.
You had a thing called a map.
Yeah.
And so the map, the Mexico City map was so big that they actually had to put it in a book form.
Oh, wow.
And so this is how crazy me and my wife were. As soon as we got our car, we just drove into the city. We had no idea where we were going. We just drove in as far as we could into the deep part of the city.
Wow.
And then we took out our map and we found our way out.
Wow.
And we did that a few times.
Yeah.
But that was our way of kind of conquering that fear of the city and that fear of the largeness of it, and so that was kind of a challenge. Spain, the challenge of Spain was also the culture. The culture was very cold towards the gospel. And dealing with people that are my wife didn't experience it so much, but I did. I experienced a lot of, I looked Latino. I obviously I have Latin blood in me, so that my physical features are Latino, Latin.
Yes.
So in Spain, Spaniards because so many Latins were going to Spain, they had a little bit of like a I wouldn't necessarily call it a racism, but they just didn't want their country to be overrun by Latin people.
Oh, wow.
And so they kind of viewed me as one of those Latin people that were coming in and taking their jobs and stuff. And so I felt a lot of rejection in that sense. So that was hard for me to process and get past. And at some point I was able to just kind of move that aside. And, we would outreach, and I would give a person a flyer, and they would say things like, go back to your country. We don't need you here in the country. Or,
oh, wow.
Or you don't give me something, I give you something. You don't give it to me,
Yeah.
Just this pride, national pride thing, and so. But once I was able to understand things, I was able to put that aside, and it didn't bother me anymore. And we were able to enjoy our time there.
Yeah.
And then Colombia, I think the challenge of Colombia was the staunchness of their Catholicism. You were either a Christian, which was there was a lot of hypocrisy in Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
or you're a staunch Catholic, and that was kind of the dynamic you're dealing with. And so, dealing with a you're trying to build a church, and the Catholics there are very, very against Christians.
Wow.
And so having to feel that off of people, that was hard to kind of maneuver past that, and understand why that was happening.
Yeah.
Understand that Christianity had burned itself in Colombia, and I was fighting a battle. I didn't realize the dynamic of that battle until a little while after we were there, and God gave us grace. We were able to slowly build a church there.
Praise God. So, did you ever experience a moment where God moved in a way you couldn't explain?
Wow, I think a lot of times.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
so I think, one of the ones that stands out to me the most was in Mexico City. We had made the decision to cut off support. And I told myself, I'm not going to ask the mother church for support anymore. So it was coming along okay. The offerings were covering the rents. And so it was pretty much taking care of itself. But I remember one particular month, that just the offerings didn't come in. So I needed to pay the rent on a Monday. And so I thought to myself, God, you've always come through for us. So, it's going to come in in the Sunday services between Sunday morning and Sunday night. It's going to come in, and we still needed a lot of money. So I'm thinking to myself, God, you always come through.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to preach my sermons, and I'm going to take my offerings, and somehow you're going to cause people to be moved upon, and you're going to provide, and you're going to help us. So Sunday morning came around, we took an offering. I remember asking my wife, did it come in? And she was like, not even close.
Wow.
And then Sunday night came around, and I thought to myself, okay, God, you're God. You're gonna supply the need.
Yes.
Sunday night came around, took the offering. After the service, I asked my wife, how was the offering? Did it come in? And I'm expecting, yes,
Yeah.
God came through.
Yeah.
But it turned out not even close. And I remember her saying, we're exactly 3,000 pesos short, which back then was a pretty good amount of money for us.
Yeah.
So I remember thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to have to talk to the landlord. And the landlord was super strict. If I was late a day, he would start tacking on interest every day. And then if we missed 3 or 4 days, he would consider kicking us out. He was just very, very strict like that. So Monday morning comes around, I go to morning prayer, and I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to present this to the landlord? And I started praying, God, I don't know how this is going to happen, but we need 3,000 pesos. God, you need to somehow, some way, bless us with 3,000 pesos. I don't know how or where it's going to come from, but I need 3,000 pesos. I'm saying that to God. And as I'm praying, I noticed the guy walk in. He had started coming to church about 2 weeks before. He was there that Sunday before. He was in the service. And so Monday, he comes into prayer. He had never come into morning prayer. He walks in and he kind of sits to my side. And I remember seeing him out of the corner of my eye.
Yeah.
And I'm praying, God, you need to give me 3,000 pesos. I'm thinking that, I'm praying that. And I could see him praying out of the corner. And I could tell that he was kind of waiting for me to finish so he could come up to me. And so sure enough, when I finished praying, he came up to me and says, Pastor, I got to go to work. But he said, look, I became a Christian in a small pueblo in the mountains of Oaxaca in Mexico. And I came to Mexico City to work. But the idea is I want to get some money and I want to go back, he said. But I don't know what happened yesterday. I've been accumulating my tithe to take it back to my church. But yesterday when we were in service, God spoke to me and God told me, this is your church. I brought you to this church, so this can be your church. And so therefore I want you to give your tithe here. So he said, God really dealt with me to do this. So here's an envelope, and this is my accumulated tithes since I've been here in Mexico City. And he handed me the envelope, walked away. I went upstairs because we lived right next door. I went upstairs, opened the envelope, and it was exactly 3,000 pesos.
Gosh, wow. That's crazy.
And that's one story of a few that where God just absolutely came through at the last moment. And I don't know how, it was just God.
Yeah.
Right. Man, that's God's power, man. Supernatural power in its glory, and I can say that I've experienced similar stuff like that too, where God just moves and there's no way that I can deny. I just know it's God, coming through. So, Pastor, I wanted to ask you one last question. What's the one thing you would tell teenagers today? You got saved in your youth, and I'm sure you see a lot of differences, in today's youth, from before and actually right now you're working with I know you're at the college right now, working with college students. What's one thing you would tell teenagers today, when it comes to giving their life to Christ and them struggling to make that decision?
Yeah. Well, number one, I would say don't be afraid to be on fire for God.
Right.
I would say, the disadvantage that the youth has now that we didn't have when we were 14, 15, 16 years old was we didn't have all the distractions that this generation has. We didn't have social media, we didn't have telephones, we didn't have video games. When I was growing up, I think there might have been a Game Boy out, a first Game Boy. That was like the highest distraction that we had,
just
that and television, we just didn't have, this was before cable television. So I think there was 3 or 4 channels that you could go to. We didn't have this connection to an internet that took you all over the world. We didn't have any of that.
Right.
So we were just on fire for God, man. Because it was entertaining to come to a concert scene. It was entertaining to be involved. We didn't have a competing thing that was pulling us to something else. And
your attention.
Exactly. So what I would tell this generation is specifically make a concerted effort to put aside distractions and focus on Jesus. Be on fire for God. You don't have to follow the crowd. You don't have to be like everybody else.
Yeah.
You can be different, and it's okay to be different. It's okay to not fit into whatever this mold that the world is saying you have to fit into.
Right. Be
on fire for God. I would say that, and I would say also, there's certain things like reading that is going by the wayside, and that is so important. I would tell youth of this generation, learn how to read, learn how to pick up a book, even if it's on a Kindle or on an iPad or whatever. But learn how to read, think things through. Don't let this world and the social media and the quick TikTok type things tell you how to believe. You pull away from that and you use your own critical thinking and obviously towards the things of God and read, and that those things are going to help you be different from this world.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor, so much for sharing that with us. And I also want to thank you for taking the time to sit with us today and share about your testimony and talk about your ministry. We hope that we can do this again sometime. And you guys listening out there, we see you guys on the next one. Thank you.